Welcome back to Engineering Out Loud. This is the second episode in our series from MECHESOL's MESP Engineering Development Program. It's called Compliance with UK-SPEC. If you're an engineer who wants to really push their career forward, I definitely suggest checking out the program and applying. You can find all the details at mechesolco.com/CPD.
Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the UK Standard for Professional Engineering Competence and Commitment, UK-SPEC for short. We'll be exploring how this standard shapes the way we see engineering professionalism, not just in the UK, but also internationally. And we'll also be talking about what it actually takes to earn those prestigious titles, like engineering technician, incorporated engineer, and of course, chartered engineer.
Yeah, it really is kind of like the guide, It's the blueprint for success in the engineering world. Absolutely. And like you said, it's not just in the UK. This is something that's recognized globally. It's almost like a universal language for qualified engineers. But before we get into all the details, I think the big question that a lot of engineers might have is, why should I care? What's in it for me? Why should I even bother with professional registration?
Well, think about it this way. It's like a stamp of approval. It's a signal to employers, to clients, to everyone out there that you've met this really rigorous set of standards. It shows that you're not just technically skilled, but you're also committed to doing things the right way, ethical conduct, always learning and growing, and staying at the forefront of your field.
Okay, so it's not just about getting a fancy title after your name. It's about building real credibility and trust.
Exactly. And you know what? There are some really tangible benefits too. Like registered engineers often earn more. They get more respect in the industry. And sometimes some roles actually require you to be professionally registered to even get the job. It can really open doors.
I see your point. It sounds like it can be a really smart move for anyone who is serious about their career in engineering.
It definitely is. And to help you along that path, UK-SPEC has outlined 5 key areas of competence. These are like the foundation, what you need to build a really successful engineering career.
Okay, let's break those down a bit. What's the first one that engineers should be focusing on?
So first up, we've got knowledge and understanding. Now, this might seem obvious, but it's more than just what you learned in textbooks. It's about being able to apply that knowledge to real-world problems.
Yeah.
Actually using it and really understanding the principles behind your field.
So it's not just about what you know. It's about how you can use it to solve real engineering challenges.
Exactly. Then we move on to designing, developing, and solving engineering problems. This is where you get to flex those creative problem-solving muscles. It's about coming up with innovative solutions, practical solutions, but you always have to work within constraints. And you can't forget about things like safety, sustainability, and the ethical implications of what you're designing.
So you're saying that engineers need to be more than just technical robots. They need to be creative thinkers and problem solvers.
Absolutely. And then, as you move forward in your career, you often take on more responsibility. And that leads us to the third area, responsibility, management, and leadership.
That makes a lot of sense. Even if an engineer isn't aiming for a purely managerial role, those leadership skills are going to be invaluable in any team.
So we've covered 3 areas so far. What are the last 2 that UK-SPEC focuses on?
The fourth one is all about communication. It's called communication and interpersonal skills. Because let's face it, engineering is rarely a solo effort. You're going to be working in teams. You need to be able to explain your ideas clearly. And sometimes you even have to explain complex technical stuff to people who aren't engineers.
Yeah, making engineering understandable to everyone. That's a skill I'm always working on myself. So what about the 5th and final area?
That would be professional dedication. This is about being committed to ethical conduct, to continuous professional development, and to contributing to the engineering profession as a whole. So it's about being more than just a skilled engineer. It's about being a responsible and engaged member of the community.
Exactly. And if you're ready to take that step, to really commit to your professional development, you should consider registering for our MESP Engineering Development Program. You can find out more at mechesolco.com/CPD. It will give you the tools and knowledge you need to meet these UK-SPEC requirements and to excel in your career.
Now, we've talked about competence, but UK-SPEC also places a lot of emphasis on professional commitment. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, it means that you're not just thinking about your technical skills, you're also thinking about your ethical and societal responsibilities. It's about understanding that engineering decisions have real-world consequences, and it starts with putting safety first. Both public safety and the safety of your colleagues.
So every project, every decision needs to prioritize the well-being of everyone involved.
Exactly. And then We have environmental responsibility. It's about adopting sustainable practices, thinking about the long-term impact of the work we do as engineers.
That's so important these days.
Yeah.
What else falls under professional commitment?
Well, there's also the whole aspect of following the rules. I mean, you need to adhere to the codes of conduct, the practice guidelines, and any legal standards that are relevant to your discipline.
So it's about upholding the integrity of the profession.
Yeah.
Making sure everyone's playing by the rules.
Exactly. And along with that, you need to be actively involved in creating a safe working environment, implementing and improving safety procedures wherever you work.
So safety is a big part of professional commitment.
Absolutely.
And what about continuous learning? Does that fit in here as well?
Oh, definitely. Continuing professional development, or CPD, is vital. Things are always changing in engineering, new technologies, new methodologies. So you need to stay current.
It's a commitment to lifelong learning.
That's the idea.
So we've talked about safety, sustainability, ethical conduct, continuous learning. Are there any other facets of professional commitment that we should highlight?
Yes. There are a few more. First, we have ethical conduct, which means making decisions with integrity and honesty, always putting the well-being of others and the profession above personal gain.
So aligning your actions with your values as an engineer.
Exactly. Then there's inclusivity and diversity. It's about making sure that everyone feels welcome and supported in the engineering profession, no matter their background, gender, or anything else.
Because a diverse range of perspectives leads to better innovation.
Precisely. We also need to be security conscious, protecting data, sensitive information, and being aware of cybersecurity threats.
So recognizing the potential vulnerabilities and taking steps to mitigate those risks.
That's right. And lastly, professional commitment also means giving back to the community, whether it's mentoring others, participating in professional organizations, or sharing your knowledge and expertise to help advance the field.
It's about contributing to the future of engineering.
Exactly. And if you're looking to connect with other engineers and get access to resources that can help you grow professionally, make sure to check out mechesolco.com/CPD.
So UK-SPEC sets a high bar. It's about more than just being technically brilliant. It's about ethical conduct, continuous learning, and a deep commitment to the profession and to society as a whole.
Absolutely. And to really solidify this focus on ethical standards, the Engineering Council and the Royal Academy of Engineering got together and developed the Statement of Ethical Principles. It's a guide to help engineers navigate ethical dilemmas and make responsible decisions.
That's fantastic. So there's a framework in place to help engineers do the right thing. But how does an engineer actually achieve this professional registration? What are the requirements?
Well, there are two main requirements you need to fulfill to become professional registered under UK-SPEC.
Okay, let's hear them. What are these two key requirements?
So the first one is about your foundational knowledge and understanding, basically. Do you have the right qualifications for the title you're going for? This could mean having a specific academic degree, or maybe you've gained equivalent knowledge through years of experience.
So you need a solid foundation, either through education or experience.
Right. And the second requirement is demonstrating your competence and commitment. This is where those 5 key areas we talked about earlier really come in. You need to show that you can actually apply your knowledge and skills, that you're following ethical standards, and that you're dedicated to continuous professional development.
So it's not just about talking the talk. You have to walk the walk.
Exactly. You need to prove that you're not just technically skilled, but you also embody the values and responsibilities of a true professional engineer. So now, let's look at how you actually fulfill those requirements. How do you actually achieve professional registration? Well, UK-SPEC recognizes that engineers come from all sorts of backgrounds, different career paths. So there are a few different ways you can go about it. There are 3 main paths.
Okay, let's go through those paths one by one. What's the most straightforward route?
Probably the most common path is through recognized qualifications, basically. This means you have an accredited degree. That meets the UK-SPEC standards for the title you're after.
So if you've already got the right degree, you're already well on your way. But what about engineers who might not have taken the traditional academic route? What are their options?
That's where professional review comes in. It's perfect for people who might not have a specific recognized qualification, but they can show that they've got the necessary competence through their work experience, professional development, all those other ways you learn and grow as an engineer.
So it's a way to prove your skills and knowledge,
Yeah,
even if your academic credentials aren't a perfect match.
exactly. Real-world experience is just as valuable as formal education. And then there's individual assessment. This is for people whose qualifications and experience don't quite fit into the first two categories, so they go through a more tailored assessment process to figure out if they meet the UK-SPEC standards.
It sounds like UK-SPEC is really trying to be inclusive, making sure there's a path for everyone.
Yeah, that's the goal. It's about recognizing competence, however you've gained it. Now let's dive a little deeper into the professional review process. Some of this applies to individual assessment, too.
Okay, tell me more about professional review. What does it actually involve?
So it starts with what we call a portfolio of evidence. This is where you get to showcase everything: your skills, your experience, how you've met those UK-SPEC standards.
It's like building your case, making your argument for why you deserve that professional registration.
Right. You need to include real examples of your work, projects you've worked on, proof of your professional development activities, anything that shows you're competent and committed.
So it's not just about listing things on your resume. You need to back it up with concrete examples.
Exactly.
So who actually evaluates this portfolio?
Your portfolio gets reviewed by an expert panel. They're all registered engineers from your chosen licensee. They're the ones who decide if your evidence shows you've got what it takes.
So you're being judged by your peers, experienced engineers who really understand what's expected in the profession.
That's right. And for incorporated engineer and chartered engineer applicants, and sometimes engineering technician applicants too, the professional review also includes an interview.
Ah, yes, the interview. Always a bit nerve-wracking. What's the purpose of that?
It gives the panel a chance to dig a bit deeper. They might ask you to clarify things from your portfolio. They're really trying to get a sense of your professional judgment, your decision-making abilities.
So it's not just about what you've done, it's about how you think.
Yeah, how you approach problems. And at the end of it all, they make a recommendation based on the interview and your portfolio about whether you meet the standards for registration.
So they have a big responsibility in maintaining the standards of the profession.
They do.
What happens if someone doesn't pass the first time?
Well, they get feedback from the panel. It tells them what they need to work on, and they can always try again later.
So it's not a one-and-done kind of thing. It's a learning process.
Exactly. It's all about continuous development. Now let's talk about the recognized qualifications path. What kind of degrees are we talking about here?
Yeah. What does an engineer typically need to have to go down this route?
So for incorporated engineer, you usually need an accredited bachelor's degree in engineering or something very closely related. It's all about making sure you've got that solid foundation in the fundamentals.
Okay. So what about chartered engineer? What are the expectations there?
Chartered engineers need to show a deeper level of knowledge, more specialization. So the typical requirement is an accredited integrated master's degree. Or you could have an accredited bachelor's and then a separate master's.
So it's about going further, getting that advanced expertise.
Exactly. And for people who don't have those specific qualifications, we've got the individual assessment path.
Right. That's the more flexible option. So how does individual assessment actually work?
Well, it's a pretty thorough process. They look at your qualifications, your work experience, and any other learning you've done. It could be formal training, on-the-job learning, even independent research or self-directed learning.
So it acknowledges that learning can happen outside of a traditional classroom setting.
Absolutely. Sometimes. They might ask you to write a technical report or do a technical interview just to really show what you know.
About proving your competence.
Yeah. And again, it's all assessed by registered members of your licensee, so you know it's being done fairly and consistently.
So peer review is a key part of the whole process.
It is.
So let's say I'm an engineer. And I've decided I want to go for professional registration. What are my first steps? Where do I even begin?
The first thing you need to do is figure out which licensee is right for you. It's the professional engineering institution that covers your specific discipline.
So like if I'm a civil engineer, I'd go to the Institution of Civil Engineers.
Yeah, exactly. Each licensee has its own requirements, application process, so you need to do your research.
Make sure you're knocking on the right door.
Once you've picked your licensee, you need to apply for a professional review. Or if you're going for individual assessment, you follow their application process.
So there will be forms to fill out.
There will be, but no matter which path you choose, you'll need to gather all your documentation, your qualifications, work experience, training records. Make sure it all lines up with those UK-SPEC standards.
So dig out those certificates.
And your transcripts.
Right.
And anything else that shows what you've learned and accomplished.
And remember, it's not just about listing things. It's about telling your story.
Yeah.
Showing how your experience has shaped you as an engineer.
Exactly. And if you're going for chartered engineer or incorporated engineer, through the professional review path, Remember, there are two parts: the written evidence and the interview.
So be ready to talk about your experience.
Be ready. And some licensees might have extra assessments, like tests or simulations. It depends on the discipline.
So do your homework. Talk to your licensee. And of course, if you're looking for extra support, the MESP Engineering Development Program is here to help. Visit mechesolco.com/CPD to find out more. Now let's move on to the final stage. What happens after you've submitted everything?
Okay. So once you've submitted your portfolio
Mm-hmm.
and done any interviews or assessments, your case goes to a committee at your licensee. They review everything.
So there's another layer of checks and balances.
Right. They want to make sure everything was done properly, that the panel's recommendation is solid, that it aligns with the UK-SPEC standards.
It's all about maintaining those high standards.
It is.
So what happens if the committee gives you the thumbs up?
If everything's good, they approve it. And you're officially registered.
Congratulations.
You've earned it. But remember, registration isn't the end. It's just the beginning.
So the journey continues. What are your responsibilities once you're registered?
Well, you need to keep learning and growing. That's what CPD is all about. You need to stay up to date, keep developing your skills.
Lifelong learning is essential.
It is. You also need to stay a member of your licensee, pay your dues, follow their code of professional conduct.
So stay active in the community.
Exactly.
And what if someone doesn't get registered on their first try?
The licensee will give them feedback, tell them what they need to improve, maybe suggest some training courses or more experience in certain areas.
There's a chance to learn and grow.
Exactly. UK-SPEC is all about supporting engineers in their development.
Now, we've talked a lot about incorporated engineer and chartered engineer. Can you give us a quick comparison? What are the key differences between those two titles?
Sure. Let's look at 5 main areas. You'll see how the responsibilities get bigger and more complex as you move from incorporated engineer to chartered engineer.
Okay, let's start with knowledge.
So, an incorporated engineer typically uses their knowledge to make things better. To improve existing systems, they work within the established guidelines and find practical solutions.
So they're making things work more efficiently.
That's right. But a chartered engineer, they go further. They use their knowledge to develop new systems, to come up with innovations. They're pushing the boundaries.
They're the trailblazers.
Yeah. Now let's talk about design.
Okay. How do the design responsibilities differ?
An incorporated engineer often focuses on designing parts of a system, making sure they meet the specifications. They're all about the details.
Making sure everything fits together perfectly.
But a chartered engineer, they're the ones leading the design of the whole system. They think about the bigger picture, integrating new technologies, considering things like sustainability, safety, the long-term impact.
They're the architects.
Yes. Now let's move on to management.
Okay. How do the management responsibilities compare?
An incorporated engineer might manage a part of a project, leading a smaller team, making sure their piece of the puzzle is on track.
Keeping things running smoothly.
Right. But a chartered engineer, they often manage the whole project, bigger teams, more complex decisions.
We're the ones steering the ship.
Exactly. Now let's look at communication.
Okay. How do incorporated and chartered engineers communicate differently?
Well, an incorporated engineer focuses on communicating within their team and with the other people directly involved in their part of the project. They make sure everyone's on the same page and that any problems are dealt with quickly.
Keeping those lines of communication open.
Right. But a chartered engineer, they need to communicate at a higher level. They might be influencing decisions with senior management or explaining complex technical things to non-technical people.
So they're bridging the gap between the technical and the non-technical.
Exactly. And lastly, let's talk about professional dedication.
Okay. How does that differ between the two titles?
An incorporated engineer makes sure they're following all the professional codes and standards. They're very careful about health and safety, and they contribute to sustainability efforts.
Setting a good example.
Yeah. But a chartered engineer, they take a leadership role in all of that. They champion ethical conduct. They oversee health and safety for the whole team. And they shape sustainability practices at a strategic level.
They're the driving force for positive change.
They are. So as you can see, both incorporated engineers and chartered engineers are crucial. They're both competent and committed. But the scope of their responsibilities really grows as you move towards that chartered engineer level.
It's a clear progression path.
It is.
It's about pushing yourself, taking your career to the next level. And if you're ready for that, the MESP Engineering Development Program can really help. Go to mechesolco.com/CPD. Check it out. So, We've covered a lot of ground today. Let's recap. What are the key things engineers should take away from this deep dive into UK-SPEC?
Well, I think the main point is professional registration is really important. It sets you apart, shows you're competent and committed.
The mark of quality. And we talked about those 5 core areas of competence: knowledge and understanding, designing and problem solving, responsibility and leadership,
Yeah.
communication, professional dedication. They all work together.
They do. And then there's professional commitment. It's not just about technical skills. It's about ethics, safety, sustainability, always learning, giving back to the profession.
It's about being a responsible engineer.
Absolutely.
And we talked about the different paths to registration: recognized qualifications, professional review, individual assessment. UK-SPEC is pretty flexible.
It is. It tries to make sure there's a way for everyone to get registered.
And we went through that professional review process,
Right.
the portfolio, the interview. It's all about showing what you can do.
Proving yourself.
Exactly.
And we compared incorporated engineer and chartered engineer. You know, showing how the responsibilities change as you move up.
So if you're listening to this,
Yeah.
and you're an engineer
Yeah.
or a technician, think about professional registration. It's worth it.
It really is. And if you need help, the MESP Engineering Development Program is there. Go to mechesoco.com/CPB.
So, one last thought. How do you think professional registration will shape the future of engineering? What do we need to do to make sure those standards stay relevant? Keep pushing the profession forward. That's something to think about. Thanks for joining us on Engineering Out Loud. We'll see you next time.